Billionaire Jared Isaacman, who funded and commanded the Inspiration 4 mission, announced he's going back to space under the Polaris Program. Meanwhile, there are multiple cargo ships taking aim at the International Space Station, and Starship gets an update on its development by SpaceX CEO Elon Musk. Welcome to this week's Spaceflight News Rundown. My name is Derek, and my channel Orbital Velocity is all about telling the story of human spaceflight and our journey toward becoming a multiplanetary species. Before we begin, I want to welcome all of my new subscribers and thank those for leaving comments and engaging in live streams. I sincerely appreciate it. Now let's get on to the news. Starting right off this week is the launch of Progress MS-19, an automated cargo ship bound for the International Space Station. Liftoff atop a 2.1A rocket occurred at 4:25 UTC, or 9:25 AM local time, February 15th from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. It was a cold morning with a temperature around -9 degrees Celsius. However, that's not a problem for the Soyuz rocket, as it's been known to launch in blizzard-like conditions. After a 9-minute ascent, the multi-stage rocket delivered Progress MS-19 into orbit. And if you're enjoying this video, be sure to launch its like button into orbit as well. A few seconds after orbit insertion, Progress MS-19 separated from the rocket's upper stage before deploying its solar panels and rendezvous antennas moments later. Progress MS-19 is currently making its way to the ISS with some 2,500 kilograms of supplies. While crewed Soyuz flights often take fewer than 4 orbits, or about 6 hours, to rendezvous with the space station, this cargo vehicle will use the standard 2-day or 34-orbit profile. It's set to arrive and automatically dock with the Russian segment's Poisk module on the space-facing side of the outpost at 7:06 UTC February 17th. Standing by to take over remote control should there be an issue will be Russian cosmonauts Anton Shkaplerov and Pyotr Dobrov, 2 members of the 7-person Expedition 66 crew. After a few hours worth of work to perform leak checks in the space between the hatches of the ISS and Progress, it will be entered by the station's crew and its contents unloaded. It contains about 1,632 kilograms of dry goods and spare parts, 431 kilograms of propellant, 40 kilograms of nitrogen, and 420 kilograms of water. While Russian cargo spacecraft typically remain aboard the ISS for about 6 months, Progress MS-19 is expected to remain at the Poisk module for about a year before undocking with trash and unneeded equipment. After leaving the ISS, it'll perform a deorbit burn to re-enter Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean, disintegrating safely over open water. Later this week, another automated cargo ship is set to launch to the International Space Station, this time from the United States. Northrop Grumman's NG-17 Cygnus spacecraft is scheduled to launch to the ISS atop an Antares rocket at 17:39 UTC, or 12:40 PM Eastern Standard Time, February 19th, from Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Named SS Pierce Sellers after the former NASA Space Shuttle astronaut, the cargo ship is expected to contain up to 3,700 kilograms of supplies and experiments for the ISS crew. After a 9-minute ascent, the 2-stage rocket will deposit the uncrewed cargo spacecraft into an initial parking orbit, where it will begin a 2-day chase of the ISS. Whereas Progress automatically docks to the station, Cygnus will reach a point some 10 meters beneath the Destiny laboratory module. Then the 17.6-meter-long Canadarm2 robotic arm will be commanded by NASA astronaut Raja Chari to capture the spacecraft at about 9:35 UTC February 21st. Over several hours, the arm will be commanded to move the vehicle to the Earth-facing port of the Unity module, where it'll be berthed. After leak checks and hatch opening, its contents will be unloaded. The spacecraft is expected to remain at the ISS for about 2 months before being loaded with trash and unneeded equipment and unberthed. NG-17 Cygnus will then travel away from the space station to perform several post-ISS activities, which include deploying several CubeSats for various customers. After its mission is over, it will be commanded to perform a deorbit burn, safely breaking apart over the Pacific Ocean. Moving on to other human spaceflight news, Jared Isaacman, the billionaire who funded and commanded the all-private civilian Inspiration 4 mission last September, has decided he wants to return to space. Less than 6 months after completing the 3-day Inspiration 4 mission, Isaacman and SpaceX have announced the Polaris Program, which is being funded at least partially by the billionaire. I did a whole video on the Inspiration 4 mission, including an overview of Isaacman and how he made his fortune. You can see it right here or in a link in the description. For the Polaris program, Isaacman is planning 3 missions. He is expected to command at least the first flight, which is named Polaris Dawn. According to its website, the Polaris program is a first-of-its-kind effort to rapidly advance human spaceflight capabilities while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes here on Earth. Like the Inspiration 4 mission, the Polaris program is partnered with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital to raise money for the childhood cancer-fighting nonprofit organization. Inspiration 4 raised over $240 million for the organization. The Polaris program is focusing on the nonprofit's global health initiative, which aims to raise childhood cancer survival rates around the world. The first flight, Polaris Dawn, is expected to launch with a Crew Dragon spacecraft atop a Falcon 9 rocket as early as the fourth quarter of 2022 and would see the first commercial spacewalk performed. As mentioned earlier, Isaacman is slated to command the mission. He'll be joined by mission pilot Scott Petit, a retired United States Air Force lieutenant colonel. Petit has worked with Isaacman over the years in various roles, including as the mission director for Inspiration 4. He was also the director of business development at Draken International and the vice president of strategy at Shift 4, the company Isaacman owns. Joining them will be two SpaceX employees, Sarah Gillis and Anna Menon. Sarah Gillis is a lead space operations engineer at SpaceX and is responsible for overseeing the company's astronaut training program. As such, she worked very closely with the Inspiration 4 astronauts. For the Polaris Dawn mission, she'll be a mission specialist. Anna Menon will be a mission specialist and a medical officer for the flight. She also works for SpaceX and is a lead space operations engineer, managing the development of crew operations. She also serves as a mission director and crew communicator. Anna Menon's husband, Anil Menon, was recently selected by NASA in December 2021 to be part of the U.S. Space Agency's astronaut corps. He is currently undergoing 2 years of initial training, after which he'll be eligible for assignment for either a long-duration space station mission or a mission to the moon under the Artemis program. A number of things are going to be attempted for the Polaris Dawn mission. The crew is slated to test out an upgraded version of SpaceX's current in-cabin spacesuits, which are really just pressure suits. These new extravehicular activity suits are expected to allow one or more members of the mission to operate outside the capsule. To allow for this first commercial spacewalk, the cabin of Dragon will need to be depressurized to a vacuum. This means all 4 crew members will need to have a spacesuit. There will also not be any life support backpacks, so they'll need umbilicals connected to the equipment inside Dragon. Additionally, during this flight, it is expected that Dragon will perform a burn to put it in an elliptical orbit that takes the vehicle higher than any Earth-centric human spaceflight mission in history, beating the record set by Gemini 11 in 1966, which flew to a maximum altitude of about 1,680 kilometers. Other objectives include the first crew to test Starlink laser-based communications in space, which would allow for higher bandwidth communications for deep space missions. There will also be various health experiments performed, many of which centered around the radiation environment at high altitudes. The second flight under the Polaris program will also be with a Crew Dragon spacecraft. Neither timelines or mission objectives for that mission were revealed. Mission 3 for the Polaris program is expected to be the first human spaceflight using SpaceX's Starship. That includes launch as well as landing. However, a lot of development work remains before Starship is ready to fly, and it is likely that many successful flights will be required before it is deemed safe to launch humans. Speaking of Starship, last week SpaceX CEO Elon Musk gave an update over the development of the world's largest rocket at Starbase, Texas. The backdrop for Musk's presentation was a fully stacked, nearly 120-meter tall Starship that is intended for an orbital flight later this year. While there wasn't a ton of new details revealed, there was a decent amount of information about the Raptor 2 engine, which will power future Starships into space. For example, Raptor 1, 29 of which are installed in the current Super Heavy booster, generates about 185 tons of thrust each. Raptor 2, of which 33 will be installed on Super Heavy boosters in the future, generates more than 230 tons of thrust at sea level, with the potential to increase to 250. Raptor 2 is also a more simplified design. Overall, Starship is expected to produce up to 7,600 tons of thrust at liftoff, which is more than twice that of NASA's Saturn V moon rocket. SpaceX has said that the system has the ability to deliver between 100 and 150 metric tons to low Earth orbit, depending on the specifics of the orbit and altitude, while being fully reusable. And once refilled in orbit, it's able to send that same payload to the moon or Mars. Orbital refilling is one of the key technologies that still needs to be tested and perfected. Musk said those tests could be completed by the end of next year or 2024. However, Musk has been known to be overly optimistic with timelines. The update gave no new information over the progress of Lunar Starship, which aims to land NASA astronauts on the moon during the Artemis 3 mission no earlier than 2025. Before SpaceX can launch Starship from South Texas, however, the Federal Aviation Administration needs to complete an environmental assessment. The regulatory agency recently postponed its decision from February 28th to March 28th. If the outcome is not in SpaceX's favor, Musk said it could delay Starship development for nearly a year as it works to build up infrastructure at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Regardless, Musk believes Starbase in South Texas will primarily only be used for research and development, with operational flights shifting to Florida. What do you think of Starship's development pace? And do you think the first orbital flight for the rocket will happen this year? And are you excited about the Polaris Dawn mission? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss another video. And while you're at it, be sure to launch that like button into orbit. The more engagement and shares, the more the algorithm will recommend these videos to others on the platform. It also lets me know what topics you're interested in regarding human space exploration. For now, if you want to learn more about last year's Inspiration 4 mission, you can check out this video right here. It may have been published before the flight, but the details are still accurate. And if you'd like to watch last week's news rundown, you can click right here. Finally, if you'd like to take a couple extra steps to help support Orbital Velocity, there's a link to my Patreon page in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and until next week, Ad Astra.